Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Jose Pila. I am your host for Civvie Debrief. And we want to welcome you again every Wednesday at 7 p.m. We have different topics, introducing different vets from different walks of life, telling us their stories so that we can share that with the veteran population, the military population, also the civilian population, most importantly, so that they get to hear these stories and either resonate with them and know that there's different ways to reach out to a veteran if they're in need, or to look at us in a different light. Today, I'm very grateful that a very close friend of mine is here. She actually just released her TEDx talk, so look for her. Her name is Alicia Hanf. Look for her on her TEDx talk. It was a beautiful talk about a topic that I want to talk about today, which is finding your last known point, or going back to your last known point. And hopefully by the end of this talk, I'll get her to write a book about it. Yes. Alicia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. Oh my goodness. So it's just so great to be here and with you. And in 2020, I feel like we've had such a journey. Yeah. Thinking of last known point. Gosh, I think the last time we were together collaborating was in a WeWork office, and trying to figure out Bunker Labs and what the next step is for us. And so a little bit about me. My name is Alicia Hanf. I am a recovering tech founder, so started a technology company. Went through all the ups and downs of what it is to be a business owner and a business leader, and then found myself working with an amazing organization called Bunker Labs, which, as you know, is a beautiful nonprofit that helps military veterans and military spouses interested in entrepreneurship launch, scale, and grow their businesses. So I got involved with that, and now I'm working in the venture capital space, so doing some investing, still heavily involved in Bunker Labs, but really just focusing on what the rest of my journey is for 2020.
You know what, it's very interesting because I finished 2018 with you, and then went, because I was under your Bunker Lab cohort.
Correct.
And my business grew tremendously because of it, to your guidance and the guidance of the Bunker Lab team. I think the biggest takeaway from the Bunker Labs experience was being able to tell a story. Yeah. Which is one of the things that we're trying to do with Civvie Debrief, is getting veterans to tell their stories. And in business, it might be a little different. And actually, it is very, very different. Getting people to resonate with your why, which is why I joined Bunker Labs, because my business needed help, but I came out of it finding out why I was doing what I was doing.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting that you say that, because I think resonating with that story is something that's challenging for us as veterans. I know when I was first starting off in the business world, I was at a pitch competition at USC, and one of the people stopped and said, "Hold on, you didn't mention one time that you were a veteran." And at that point, I wasn't even identifying with being a veteran. It just wasn't a part of my story. And then I had to figure out, how do I connect this into who I am today? And I realized a lot of it through the Bunker Labs, a lot of it through Last Known Point, and we'll talk about that. But going back to my why and who I am as a person, what my values are. And as I started to unpack that, I realized that I was really looking for those values, the sense of camaraderie that I had in the military in every walk of life since I left. And I just didn't know it.
Well, you know what, for our audience, tell us a little bit about your background in the military. How long did you serve? What did you do?
Yeah, so I was in the Army, for 6 years. I was in a specialized branch of the Chemical Corps called Technical Escort. So usually if people find unexploded ordnance or a bomb or something like that, they'll call the EOD techs. And the EOD techs would call us. So we were the people that they would call. So, there's always this joke that everyone's waiting around for EOD. I'll just make the joke that, EOD was waiting for me to do my hair or something like that. But so we are a really specialized branch, small teams. We really just had to communicate at all times, working together. But through my military experience, I learned leadership, communication. I brought this into my own business. When communication fails, the mission fails. That's something I learned so it was really ingrained in me as I was enlisted in the military.
Well, through that process, because I was at your TEDx talk, and I also because it just got launched on YouTube, and it brought me back to your story. And the first time I've ever heard your story was that day on TEDx, and it kind of resonated with me because I felt like looking for that last known point. I've been doing it since I've been out of the military, going through rehab, going through going through homelessness and things like that. I think I always revert, although I didn't know it at the time, I always revert back to a last known point.
Yeah.
What was yours?
Yeah, so just to break down last known point really quickly, it's a land navigation term for those who might not be familiar. So I'm born and raised in LA. I'm a city girl. I'll call it beach girl, but city girl to the core. And when I went to basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, aka Fort Lost in the Woods, Missouri, I had never been in the woods before. And I didn't realize it until I was going out in land navigation. And in land navigation, they give you a map, a compass, a pencil, and they say, okay, go find your way, go get lost, and hopefully you make it back and you can graduate basic training. So here I was, just knowing that I was almost to the end of basic training and I had to complete this horrible task. And the drill sergeants must have seen this on my face, because when I went out there, they said, asked me before I went out, "Private, do you know what your last known point is?" And I said, "My what?" And they said, "Okay, when you get lost, and you will, don't panic, don't freak out, don't cry like a baby, but take a look around and go back to that last place that you remember knowing where you were, that last place where you could find your way." And they said, "That's your last known point. From there, replot your course and try again." And I found myself, I moved back to California in 2015 after facing a horrible tragedy in my life. And I found myself feeling the most lost I've ever been in my life. I was trying to start a tech company after quitting a job and doing all of these things. And I just said, I cannot take it, and I lost it. I was on the brink of completely giving up at life, on the brink of a mental breakdown, and just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, I heard my drill sergeant's voice in my head saying, "Don't freak out, don't panic, just what is your last known point?" And for me, that has been, since then, a values conversation of what is my why, and I started to think back of what that last known point was, and for me, that was having the sense of belonging and camaraderie that I had when I was in the military. And through there, I found Bunker Labs, and Bunker Labs is really where I found myself saved and finding that sense of belonging and finding people like you who are on a similar journey.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I've been on a similar path, trying to find my way through this life navigation.
Yeah.
And
life navigation, I love that.
Yeah, and that when I heard that talk in Pasadena when you did that TEDx talk, and it really resonated, knowing that I've done this before.
Yeah.
Learning land navigation for me was very, very easy, but I didn't know that I was implementing it in my life after the military and finding my last known point along the way.
Yeah.
But I would like to know, like your last known points. I know that the tragedy that you faced, you talked about it on the TEDx talk. Have you done anything like that after that?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I'm finding myself having this last no point conversation now. So 2019 was a huge growing year for me. I moved on from being a city leader with Bunker Labs and moved up in the company and helped them more on a strategic level and headquarters growing as we're expanding to all 50 states, helping even more veterans and military spouses and just entrepreneurs in general. And something clicked to me where I said, this is my mission and my calling, is connecting people. How do I do this on a broader scale? And again, going back to that values conversation, who am I as a person? I think connection, empathy, gratitude is a huge part of me. So this past year, I implemented a gratitude practice where every day I wake up and the first thing I do is just say 5 things that I'm grateful for. And implementing this gratitude practice in my life has shifted my mindset to where it's almost hard for me to be negative now. But I've noticed that because I'm so practicing gratitude in every chance I get, I'm receiving more opportunities. So this last year with implementing gratitude as a last known point, and I just had to go back to this recently when the TEDx talk was released. I wasn't the first person to share it, and I haven't shared it yet formally. Somebody else did. Sure. And no, it's great. And people have been sharing it. We're sharing it. I'm going to share it. It's out now. It's in the universe. But I freaked out. And I was so nervous, and I felt so vulnerable. And I had to go back to this last known point, which was my gratitude practice, and just say, I'm so incredibly thankful and grateful for this experience and for anything that the universe is sending my way. Buckle up, we're going to do this.
Yeah, and I could see why. I completely understand why it would be such a nerve wreck for you. The story is extremely impactful. So if you get the opportunity to log on to YouTube, look for Alicia Hanf TEDx Talk, you'll know why.
You can just search last known point.
Yeah, last known point. And yeah, the story would probably make me nervous too.
Yeah.
Especially sharing it with that many people.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But that's what it's about. Brene Brown says this, where, vulnerability is really the foundation of innovation, of creativity, of creating. And this is what I think we're here for. We're creators. One of the things I mentioned in the talk is so often people see a veteran and they say, thank you for your service, as if our time here is done, as if we're no longer serving. But most of us leave the military with that last known point, and we're going to that next point, our next opportunity to serve and to continue serving our communities. We're still leaders. We're still giving. And so I think that's one of the things to take away is that our whole life, like you said, it's life navigation. We're on this journey, regardless of what we're doing. We're out there, and so we're constantly going to have to go back to our last known point. And so, for anyone listening, I just challenge you to take a look at yourself, understand what is your why, and those are your sets of values and principles that make you who you are, regardless of anything else that you're doing. And then just understanding that we're constantly in transition. Whether you're a veteran or civilian, we're constantly going to that next thing, whether it's a breakup, whether it's getting out of the military, whether it's buying a home, whether it's changing your career. We're constantly in transition. We're constantly going to that next point.
Yeah, and well, and it's, you know what, it's interesting what you mentioned earlier, that your passion is with connection with people, because your tech company that you developed was that you created was connecting professors or students in a better way. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
So, well, going back a little bit to like the military, your military career, and since we are more of a transitioning, how it was for military service members transitioning out of the military, the difficulties of that transitioning and going into technology and things like that. So tell us a little bit about yours.
I think that I had to be a little insane to get out of the military. I was working in government contracting jobs, but to be going through what I was going through personally, and then to start a tech company as a non-technical founder. So I'm somebody who just now could not figure out how to put Facebook Live on my phone. So I'm not technical at the core, but I saw technology as a way of solving this problem, which at the time I thought was just students and professors aren't able to communicate. But I realized that there was a lack of community that they were experiencing, and a lot of shame having to just do with not feeling like they had a sense of belonging. And so I've been chasing this since I got out of the military, and I did not realize it until I had that breakdown. I think in terms of, you asked me last known point earlier. So my last known point in 2015, when I had my breakdown, was my military career. My last known point after that was finding Bunker Labs. Last year was my gratitude practice. And now my next point is, okay, how can I put all of this together so that I can help people? So that's sharing the talk, starting a coaching business, and doing what I do to help entrepreneurs.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen you in several talks. I mean, the TEDx talk is probably one of the biggest ones that I've experienced, but I've seen you at, not only talking at Bunker Labs, but a women's conference that you did last year.
Yeah.
And several other conferences that you've done, that you're supporting and empowering not only the veteran community, but also the women empowerment and things like that. So
absolutely. I think transition is hard no matter what, just period. What really helped me when I got out was I had an incredible woman. Her name is Fawn Sanchez. I've talked about it before with you. She's at Amazon now, but she was a captain, and she helped me when I got out. I reached out to her and I said, ma'am, I'm getting out of the military. I don't know what to do. Can I have an informational interview with you? And she took a chance on me. And she got out. She was a civilian working for a government contractor. And she said, all right, I'm here to help you. I'm going to get your resume together. I'm going to give you this hand up. I'm going to give you that next step. And so my advice to anyone, whether you're transitioning out of the military, in business, just find a mentor, find somebody that you can trust. If you are in a position to help somebody like Fawn did with me, just reach out and look for those opportunities. I really challenge you to look for those opportunities to help somebody and to bring somebody up along with you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think after my military career, I had a professor at Cal Poly. I had a professor that really helped me out with my pursuit in knowledge. That's probably one of the biggest things that has helped me transition, although I went through a lot of the struggles, is increasing my knowledge, and my professors have helped me a lot. So, yeah, I like that.
But even you with your struggle, because I know you went through some challenges as well, do you feel like you had somebody there to help you along the way?
I think it might have been my family a lot. My biggest and strongest pillar is my family. It always will be. But no one hand to hand, no. I think, knowing that my family was going to be there and and support me, I think that helped me out a lot. Yeah. But no one like a mentor or anything, except for when I joined Bunker Labs, it was you.
It was me.
Yeah, you and the team and the camaraderie that we created in that particular cohort. I don't know how it's been since then, but that cohort that we...
It was a magic cohort.
To me it was, because everyone was so helpful with each other. We still stay connected. I talked to probably more than half of them still.
But it's like the military. I feel like when you're in the military, you always have friends and family somewhere. And I think that's the thing. We get out sometimes and we go from having every second of our day planned out and knowing exactly who our battle buddies were, who we're on a truck with, or who we're on a mission with. And then we get it in our transition and we find ourselves alone and we don't ask for help. And we really feel isolated and separated from, one, we go through this loss of identity because we're not wearing our unit insignias and our patches. We're not part of that thing anymore. So we feel, but then we're alone and we don't have people there helping us.
You know what? It's funny because when I had recently gotten out, you're no longer wearing that uniform. You're no longer wearing those insignias. That you're a walking resume when you're wearing. Yeah. When you're wearing your uniform, you don't need to tell anybody about what you've done. What you have your combat patches. Everything is on you. And then you come out into the civilian life, and that resume's gone. That identity's gone. You're no longer wearing that resume on you. Right. And for me, it was a little impactful because I assumed that everyone knew what I had done, knew what I'd been through, knew what I was going through, and I didn't have to mention. So I walked for many years. I walked around a little bit with arrogance. Yeah. Like, why aren't you asking me about what I've done? Why aren't you looking at me differently? And my transitioning process humbled the shit out of me. So I get it. For me, it was a little bit different because in the unit that I served in, I think I saw one female. So I don't know how the military lifestyle was. Yeah, really similar. I was the only woman on my team for a really long period of time. So the really cool thing about my unit is we were in really small teams of between 12 to 15. We had such few women in our unit, but everyone was a badass. Like, I don't know if I can say that. Hopefully I can. But everyone was really fierce. So we had this one girl, and I've talked about this before with you, but she could outshoot anybody. She could shoot smiley faces. God, I just wanted to be there. I wanted to be her so bad. She was just so fierce. Or we had, women who were experts at fitness or just were the smartest in terms of all the technical equipment we had. And the men on our team would say to me, use your combat multipliers. You have skill sets that we don't have. Use those things. And they never wanted to take my identity as a woman, which I thought was just super great. And I'm so thankful for that. You said something that was really cool just now about when you are in the military, you're walking around and you're wearing your resume. And we lose that identity because we take that off when we go out. And I think of that as your last known point. But it's not a final destination. Yeah, it's a little difficult when, like, now I don't like talking about myself. I don't, and I'm sure a lot of veterans don't just freely give out this information or freely just start, telling stories about how they transition or what the military lifestyle was. It's very difficult for a lot of us to just open up.
Yeah.
So wearing that resume, or even now when I start telling people like the things that I've done or how many schools I have, how many degrees I have, they're like, really? But I don't, and I'm sure that a lot of veterans are the same way.
Yeah.
Which is why we developed this channel.
Right.
Because we need to get those stories out so that it opens up a line of communication, a dialogue with the vets, and civilians could start that talk with the veterans and see how to talk to them. So
when just taking back our narrative, I think is really important. So one of the reasons I didn't identify with being a veteran at first is because when I even myself would think of veteran, I thought PTSD, homelessness, or war. And I don't consider myself a combat veteran, even though I went to Afghanistan. I didn't associate with that. So as a woman, which is already a minority, and didn't associate with those things, I didn't feel that it was okay to even say I was a veteran. And I think it's so important that we take back our narrative and let people know, and I talk about this in the TED Talk, veterans are leaders. We're wired to serve. We are experts at so many things. The military invests millions and millions of dollars training us to be leaders. Just how we know how to work with one another, or the empathy that I think we so naturally bring, empathetic leaders. The world needs it.
But why do you think that was? Was it society that made you feel that way because of maybe roadblocks that you've experienced through the civilian process, coming into transitioning into civilian life? Was it that, or somebody telling you that it wasn't?
It's very interesting because I think even I didn't deploy while I was in service, and so at one point in time I didn't even feel like I was patriotic enough to say that I served, because I didn't serve in a war. I didn't deploy. So that was one thing for me. And then I think just seeing in the media, if you look and see what's portrayed and what's posted and what's around, you don't often, and I would love someone to correct me if I'm wrong, but see stories of veterans who are leading in business and still serving. It's a different story.
You're absolutely right. I don't think I've seen a story of a veteran doing something phenomenal. Developing a company, doing a TED Talk, or things like that. It's crazy, but you will see the headlines of shooting here,
right?
Oh, and they happen to be a military service member. It's like,
right?
Really, that's the only thing you want to bring up about a vet? And
I could tell you of over hundreds of people right now within Bunker Labs and other similar organizations who are doing some really amazing things in the community. I mean, you with your company and your passion, to the people that we served within our Bunker Labs cohorts, to people who are, creating products to educate women in Afghanistan, to people who are creating backpacks for homelessness, who have just superfood companies so that we're healthier, you name it, consulting businesses, investors, we're doing it. And that's a story we need to tell.
But how do we start changing that narrative so that we start coming out positively in the media and the big the big companies like CNN and Fox, tell the stories of veterans doing amazing things.
Right. Oh, this is a good one. So I think the call to action is anybody who's a veteran who served, just show up and be your true authentic self. So let's start talking about our service. Let's start talking about the fact that we've served. Let's start really going back and diving in and pulling out what our superpowers are. So Todd Connor, the CEO of Bunker Labs, he'll ask you that, what's your superpower? And he is somebody who leads so fully with empathy and honesty and really encourages us to be authentic. And so I think let's be authentic, let's show up for ourselves, let's lead with the story that we're veterans, and then let's not let thank you for your service stop us, because we're still continuing to serve. We're wired to serve. And so how do we show that service? Let's start talking about it nonstop.
Yeah, and for me, and this is just my personal opinion, it does bother me a little when somebody says thank you for your service. Like you mentioned, like my service has stopped, and it hasn't. So what would we say to someone that's, they're either being genuine, or it's just something that they feel like they need to say because they're in the presence of somebody that has served?
Yeah.
What would be an alternative to something you mentioned?
So one of my really good friends was also a ranger. And one of the things he said to me, he said when he was in lead the way, it's a drill, what do you call them, drill instructors? So RIs. So said to him, ranger instructor, don't let this tab be the coolest thing you ever do. And I thought that was the coolest thing. Because being a ranger, your own special group, but is that don't let this tab be the coolest thing you ever do. And it wasn't the coolest thing he's ever done. He's doing some pretty amazing things. But I think of it that way, is if everyone can sort of look at us as like, wow, only 1% of this population serves. We're superheroes. We have all of these great skills. And we got out of the military, and now that wasn't the coolest thing we've ever done. So what's next? Yeah. And I think acknowledging that, like, wow, you were in the service. What did you learn from that? What are you doing now? How are you still continuing to serve your community? How can I help you on your next mission? You know, how can we, it doesn't have to be civilians against veterans. How can we come together? You know, and so what does that look like where civilians recognize that there are so many unique skills that we bring to the table, and we need to start partnering together?
Yeah, the service member community, I mean, we're a small percentage of individuals that actually sign that contract to give their lives for someone else. It's a very, very small percentage. And even smaller so after the transitioning into civilian life, going into entrepreneurship or getting a degree after that, it's even smaller.
Yep.
So throughout my life, I've prided myself in being the positive side of statistics, being a Hispanic that hasn't been married in 37 years. Well, now I will be married in October. But
I'm waiting for my invite.
Yes. You know, but I mention it so that veterans out there, or service members, anybody out there, be on the positive side of statistics.
Yeah.
If you want to become a statistic, be on the positive side. There's a lot of veterans out there. I just read an article about a Navy SEAL that's also, after getting out of the SEALs, went into becoming a doctor, and then now he's going to be one of the first Navy SEAL doctors, astronaut.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. If you talk about fucking David Goggins.
Yeah, I mean, he's a hero.
Yeah, he's like running ultra marathons every weekend. Like,
I was going to make a joke about the Navy SEALs, and you brought up David Goggins, and, you know, he's just, but even he says, David Goggins says, greatness is not something that you meet once and stays with you forever. You have to constantly be in pursuit of that. And so how are we constantly pursuing that?
So it's insane to think that after our service, or after our military service, our service is over.
Yeah.
You still have to chase and pursue that positive statistics and pursue something better than what you've done, like you mentioned.
Right.
Either a Ranger tab, being a SEAL, or being, you know, whatever it is that you were in the military, there's something else that you could pursue.
Right.
And a lot of us need that mission purpose, and I think we just solved it. Just chase the next step.
Yeah, that next point.
Yeah, your next
it's point. Life navigation. Yeah, we're gonna have to get the domain to that. We're gonna have to do something really cool with that.
Yeah, life navigation and your last known point.
Last known point.
Which I did mention that I'm going to get you to write a book about it. You should. I think it's very impactful if you do a motivational book about finding your last known point. I think it would be a bestseller. Yeah. David Goggins,
here, watch out. I'm chasing you down, David Goggins. Yep. I love it.
But anything that you want to finish with? I think our time is almost up.
Uh-oh. Are we running out? We could just probably talk forever.
We can. But we are coming to a close. Yeah. But we would love to have you back again. Okay. And if you have anything for our audience, or
I just think for closing points, call to action is really just challenge yourself to be comfortable with being you and to be authentic. Implement a gratitude practice, whatever that is. Just wake up every day and say, I'm so thankful for, even if it's just one thing, and I promise it'll change your life. When we talk about last known point, that's a values conversation. And I think when we are anchored with our values, so many things can come into alignment from there. But just know, wherever you are in your transition, you're not alone. You belong here, and there's people like us and organizations to support you. So we've got you.
Definitely. And I actually challenge everyone that's listening, everyone that's going to be listening, to write down on the comments below, what is your last known point? What is there anything that you're struggling with that you could sit down and contemplate and say, okay, what is it? Where was the last point in my life that I felt calm, that I felt in control? And then start from there. Like Alicia mentioned, you have to kind of step back outside yourself and say, where am I going to go from here? The problem that isn't going to, it's going to persist if you allow it to. But if you calm down and, figure out what your last known point was,
you'll find your way.
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy to get it
to life navigation.
Yeah, get things done. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Alicia, for joining us. It's always amazing to talk to you, and I know that we can talk forever, but unfortunately our audience,
we have to stop meeting up like this.
Yeah. But don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. and we'll see who is our guest next week, and we'll see everyone next Wednesday. Like us on Facebook, Instagram, all the social media platforms. See us on YouTube, and we'll see you next Wednesday, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Thank you.